بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله. We continue reading from Imam Al-Ghazali's kitab شرح عجائب القلب, The Marvels of the Heart. This is book 21 of Ihya Ulumuddin, The Revival of the Religious Sciences of the Islamic Sciences, of course, translated by Walter James Skilly. We have reached page 87, practically the very last paragraph. We spoke about the struggle and the push against Satan, and how Imam Ghazali says, so there is no escape from struggling against him, against Satan. And the struggle has no end but death. So from the moment we can even add to this that there is a hadith of the Prophet ﷺ in which he said that all the children of Adam, upon birth, Satan pokes them, except for Maryam, for Mary, and her son, peace be upon them. It's an amazing hadith, really. So as if Satan says, I am right here, I'm waiting for you, and it's going to be a long story between us. And this long story could take years, it could take decades, or even beyond for those who go beyond the 100 years mark, which is very rare. But the idea is, but there is no end, has no end, this struggle, but death. And there are no breaks. Satan does not take a vacation. Probably vacations, our vacations will be, excellent opportunities for Satan to, hunt and tempt people. Depends where you go. And today, even in Islamic cities, in historical Islamic cities, the behavior of Muslims is unfortunately not in line with Islam itself. And we'll see about the no break, no vacation, not even at night. And we'll get to this. We did mention Hasan al-Basri. We are separated by a paragraph of few lines. We'll read them. Imam Ghazali said, Rahimahullah, it is true that one may become strong so that he is not led astray by Satan, and he may ward off his evil from himself by means of struggle. This is really jihad in the concept of the greater jihad, which is a struggle against one's appetite, against one's evil ideas, against Satan's temptation, against oneself, if النفس الأمارة بالسوء. So it's an ongoing story, and it's a daily thing, and not a daily meaning that during the light hours of the day, it's not between 6 and 6. No, it's 24/7, as we call it. But he can never dispense with struggle and defense as long as the blood flows through his body. For as long as he is alive, the gates from whence Satan enters are open to his heart and cannot be closed. They are appetence, anger, envy, covetousness, greed, and others, which will be explained later. So whenever the gate is open and the enemy not careless, he cannot be warded off except by watchfulness and struggle. A man said to Hassan, meaning Hassan Basri, Wallahu Alam, of course, "O Abu Sa'id," he is Abu Sa'id, of course, "does Satan sleep?" Meaning, does he take a break? He smiled and answered, "If he slept, we should rest. We would take a break from Satan's issues, like, let's say, Had Satan slept from, uh, let's say, from 8 p.m. until 6 a.m., then there should be no crime, no quarrels, no issues between spouses within the family, between siblings, between. As long as it's night, we are safe. No, we are not. If he slept, had he slept, we should rest. We would have rested. Therefore, the believer has no escape from him. It is true that he does have a way of warding him off and weakening his power. The Prophet ﷺ said, the believer can exhaust his demon just as one of you exhausts his camel on his journey. Yes, you keep struggling, and definitely if you are really strong, then this should be a cause of concern to Satan. You are going to make him weak. This hadith has on the chain of narrators Ibn Lahiya. Don't I mean even the the uh, the sound of the nickname here. He is was of course he was محدث الديار المصرية. He was literally the scholar of hadith in Egypt, and his biography is stunning. The only thing is that at a later stage in his life, his books were burnt, meaning his notes, his cookbooks, the things that he used to read from. So it seems that he mixed things at an old age. This is why some scholar simply rendered him ضعيف, weak, because of that. One should say at the same time that there are those who continue to trust his tradition, and it's not impossible. Really. I'm talking about the content, the text itself. Ibn Mas'ud said, the demon of the believer is emaciated. Qais bin al-Hajjaj said, my demon said to me, when I entered into you, I was like a camel fit to be slaughtered, like fat. This reminds us of ultimately he said, and now I am like a sparrow, like he got so thin. I asked him, why is that? He answered, you cause me to melt away by your remembrance of God the Exalted, meaning dhikr, of course, would make Satan run away during the dhikr. He doesn't like the dhikr. And like a camel fit to be slaughtered, plumpy, juicy. This reminds us of Sayyidina Ibrahim alayhi salam, when the angels, of course, they at the time he thought that they were human beings. They took anthropomorphic form. They were on their way to the people of Lot, Sayyidina Lut alayhi salam, to punish them. It was a great punishment. And it was for homosexuality, not lack of hospitality. At any rate, Sayyidina Ibrahim alayhi salam, in one part of the Quran, in one context, he brought them عجل samin, and in another context عجل hanith. Samin is fat, and hanith is roasted, and there's no contradiction. So it was so he offered them the best that the cow was fat and roasted. And the issue here also is that many stories associated with this context, many messages, but one of them, and this is the opposite of what happened in the Old Testament. The Old Testament, they eat, the angels eat. In the Quran, they refrain. فلما رأى أيديهم لا تمتد إليه أوجس منهم خيفة, because sharing a meal meant peace, and when they refrained, he was worried. Of course, at that time, they revealed uh, their task, and Sayyidina Ibrahim alayhi salam, started basically pleading with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Of course, as we said, there are many stories there. So Satan, in this context, he was fit, a camel fit to be slaughtered. Now he became like a sparrow, and the reason why is because of remembrance, dhikrullah azza wa jal. And it's amazing. Wouldn't one of us remember Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? May He subhanahu wa ta'ala assist us and guide us and help us on this path of remembrance. Thus it is not Imam Ghazali continues, thus it is not impossible for pious people to close the doors of Satan and keep them closed by being on guard. I mean the obvious doors and the clear paths that lead to overt acts of disobedience. But they stumble in his obscure paths, for they are not clearly guided to them so as to guard them. As we indicated in the example above about the self delusion of the scholars and the preachers. The difficulty is that the doors to the heart that are opened to Satan are many, while there is but a single door for the angels, and that one door is likely to be confused with all the others. Before them, man is like a traveler in a desert that has many paths and obscure roads on a dark night, where he can hardly know the way except by the eye of insight or the rising of a shining sun. Shining sun. Siraja Wahaja, the Prophet ﷺ was described as Siraj. Sun is the Siraj, the Prophet ﷺ is the Siraj, meaning his light is continuous, like the light of the sun is continuous. Subhanallah. The eye of insight here is the heart that has been purified by piety. And the shining sun is that abundant knowledge derived from the Book of God, the Exalted, and the Sunnah of His Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam. By these two, he is rightly guided regarding Satan's obscure ways. Otherwise, his paths are many and obscure. Abdullah bin Mas'ud radiallahu anh said, the Messenger of God one day, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, one day drew a line for us and said, this is the way of God. Then he drew other lines. Then he drew other lines to the right and to the left of that line and said, there are ways on every one of which there is a demon inviting men to him. Then he repeated from the Quran, this is my straight path, so follow it, follow not the other ways. هذه سبل على كل سبيل منها شيطان يدعو إليه ثم تلا, he recited, وإن هذا صراطي مستقيما فاتبعوه ولا تتبعوا السبل. It has a sound chain of narrators. Thus, the Prophet ﷺ showed the abundance of Satan's ways. There is one straight path. There are many paths that Satan creates and continues to create. And sometimes people think that they are in line, that they are really the ones that follow the right path. One day they are called the Quraniyun, they drop the Sunnah. One day they say they are progressives. And one has to explain that in a context when people became afraid in Western societies, and they wanted to be accepted by the larger society, they started giving up certain things um, from Islam. By definition, if you are liberal, you have liberated yourself from something or the other or more. Liberated in the sense of you have given up on something that is part of Islam. I uh, I remember I was invited uh, to sit in a committee uh, interviewing potential scholars of Islam, Middle Eastern studies, as they call them. Uh, so they are shortlisted, and then they started inviting people to come to campus. This was when I was a Fulbright scholar at Florida Atlantic University, the Wills Honors College. And I remember someone, I'm not going to mention his background, but uh, like from which country, although I remember very well. But it seems that he stayed for a while, and he made sure that by introducing himself, he said that he lived for a while. He's from somewhere in the Middle East, but he lived for a while in an area in France called Champagne. So the drink itself, the alcoholic drink, the champagne originally comes from that region. And he said about himself that he was a wine connoisseur, that he's an expert in wines. Why did he introduce himself like this? Very simple. He's saying, I'm not a religious Muslim. Like, please take me as a professor. Drop, basically, don't think about my name. Subhanallah. They did not take him. And that has, I hope that has no weight at all. Um, I don't think that the professors would be deceived by such a lowly position. Respect yourself, respect who you are and what you stand for. Thus, the Prophet ﷺ showed the abundance of Satan's ways. We have mentioned an example of one of his obscure ways, namely that which he deceives the scholars and the worshipful, the ubbad, who have control over their appetites and abstain from overt acts of disobedience. Let us now mention an example of his plan ways by which it is evident that the child of Adam, son of Adam, must pass. This is contained in the following story, which is attributed to the Prophet ﷺ. This is the story of the monk, really, Rahib. So, what's the story of this monk, this Rahib? Amongst the children of Israel, like an ascetic, because the children of Israel does not specify really which period. Satan entered into a maid and caused her to have a fit, and put it into the hearts of her folk that she could be cured by the ascetic. So they brought her to him, like he's a holy man in a sense. He could cure her, but he refused to receive her. They continued asking him until he finally took her in. When she was with him for treatment, Satan came to him and made him, being near her, seem very attractive. And he kept on tempting him until he ensnared her and she became pregnant by him. Then he whispered to him and said, "Now you will be disgraced openly, like the whole society. You have been known as a," like the meaning is, your all your years of ascetism, of rahbaniya, or your reputation now goes down the drain. Now you will be disgraced openly. Her folk will come to you, so kill her. And if they ask you, say that she died. So he killed her, the rahib, the monk. He killed her and buried her. But Satan went to her folk and whispered to them, and put in their hearts the thought that he had seduced her and then killed her, and killed and buried her. Her folk then came to him and asked him about her, and he told them that she had died. They took him to kill him in revenge for her. Then Satan came to him and said, I am he who caused her to have the fit, and I put the thought in the hearts of her folk. Now obey me, and you will be rescued. Prostrate yourself before me twice. So he prostrated himself twice. It is he, Satan, of whom God exalted, said, like the example of Satan when he said to man, disbelieve. But when he disbelieved, he said, indeed, I am disassociated from you. كمثل الشيطان إذ قال الإنسان اكفر فلما كفر قال إني بريء منك إني أخاف الله رب العالمين. So look at his tricks and the way in which he compelled the ascetic to commit these great sins, all of them kaba'ir. In fact, the very last one, prostrating to Satan, not only it's kabira, it cannot be forgiven. And all of this because he obeyed him in taking in the maid for treatment. This is just recognize your vulnerability. No two, meaning a man and a woman, that get together except that Satan is their third, meaning that it's going to cross their mind. This in itself was an insignificant matter, but perhaps he who did it considered it a good and charitable act, and he approved of it in his heart because of a hidden desire. So he went ahead with it as one desirous of doing good, and therefore the matter went beyond the sphere of his choice, one thing leading him on to another, until he found no escape. We take refuge with God from the loss of the beginning of things. To this is the reference in the Prophet ﷺ, in the Prophet saying, he who hovers about a forbidden thing is in danger of falling into it. من حام حول الحمى يوشك أن يقع فيه كالراعي حول الحمى يوشك أن يقع فيه. من حام حول الحمى يوشك أن يقع فيه. Hadith muttafaq عليه. We have reached the end of chapter 11. Inshallah, we'll continue in the next session with chapter 12. Until then, سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك أشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت أستغفرك وأتوب إليك والسلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.